I'm trying to show this off without showing my chest.
The tree.
Although you're welcome to at any point if you want.
Show my chest.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, welcome to Jumpsuiters, a podcast where we explore multi-dimensional topics in a practical 3D reality sort of way. Today we're diving into the world of deconstruction. I wanted to go to my best friend ChatGPT and give a little definition of what we mean by deconstruction, and then I'm really excited to introduce you to one of my best friends on the planet, Max.
Hey.
Hey. All right, deconstruction is the process of critically examining and breaking down beliefs, systems, or ideas, usually ones that have previously shaped your identity or worldview. In personal or spiritual contexts, like when someone says they're deconstructing their faith, it often means they're questioning the doctrines, authority figures, traditions, and cultural assumptions they once accepted without much thought. It's not just about losing faith or rejecting something, it's more like unpacking, untangling, and getting clear on what feels true now versus what was inherited, imposed, or absorbed. There's a lot of things beyond religion and spirituality that get deconstructed, by the way. It made me a little list. Things like family and upbringing, gender and sexuality, capitalism and productivity culture, patriotism and politics, race and privilege, education and academia, health and wellness, love and relationships, spiritual communities and new age beliefs, and so on. And then it kind of went on to give me like a whole, kind of like the stages of grief. Like there's like this whole like emotional process that people go through. So there's a lot there. And I'm really excited to be hanging out with you, Max, because I really, truly mean this when I say this. I don't know that I've ever come across a human that has deconstructed and integrated more than you. Really.
When you read that list, I was like, I need to take a deep breath because, the context of like, when we talked about having this conversation, our context was faith, evangelicalism, but reading that list, I'm like, God, I was just, which I've been feeling anyway, but I was like, I need to take some time and just rest because, gosh, the work.
Yes. Yeah, totally. I think I told you this once before, but I was doing ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, and I had this moment where I was just like in awe of a couple people in my life who I don't know. I've just watched their journeys, and I perceive them to be like truly the most like integrated, authentic people I've ever come across. And you were one of them.
Sure.
I had this moment. Again, I'm on ketamine, so whatever. But like, I had this moment where I literally stood up and gave you a standing ovation.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, with that, like, how do we even start with unpacking who you are and the journey you've been on? Maybe we even start with how we know each other because it, kind of overlaps a bit.
Yeah, I think that'd be cute. We met at a coffee shop.
Yeah, my coffee shop.
You owned that coffee shop. Badass. So,
are you comfortable with me announcing who you were then?
Oh yeah. My name was Meg. So I'm a trans man, and so. Yeah, I guess that's important to mention. At the time, I was living as a woman. So it was a different space. Nicole and I were like good girlfriends when we met, and that was I'll just say that and get that out of the way.
Yeah. Meg was awesome. We love Meg. Meg was really awesome, and she could just like out preach all the guys. It was so cool. I ended up being Meg's Bible study leader, and I was involved in like Campus Crusade for Christ, and you were involved in Young Life, and so there's a lot of like there that we can unpack. Max ended up in seminary, and I would say even beyond that, even though that's not the career you went on to have per se, you always, even now, and as I imagine you forever, are someone who has a strong point of view and a lot of passion and a lot of care to lead by example, to help guide other people. So like whatever a quote minister is, like that's never left you.
Yep. I'm a pastor.
Yeah, you're a pastor.
Officially and unofficially.
Yeah, yeah.
Ordained and otherwise.
Yeah. Max lives in Brooklyn too, so we're gonna hear trains and sirens and parades, I hope. Okay, so let's bring it back to the topic of deconstruction. And I imagine it's maybe a little bit of an impossible ask to inquire when maybe you began deconstructing, but I'm curious how you might attempt to answer that question.
Gosh, I want to hear your answer too. I would say that I never wasn't. As I was constructing my faith, I look back now and I say, I was always constructing and deconstructing my faith simultaneously. And I would stand before you and say that that is still true. I think that my process of like understanding God, reality, myself, the world, the beautiful world, has always been iterative. Like I've always been doing the best I can with what I have. And I guess I was saved, y'all, when I was a sophomore in high school. I had a salvific spiritual experience at a church camp in Virginia, through Young Life, and we'll get more into Young Life later. But like, it was really nice. Like it was really important to me at that time. It was really it was a very impactful experience. But it was the catalyst, understanding like what Jesus did for me. And again, we're going to deconstruct all the Western individualism and like all the things but just for the sake of the story, hearing what Jesus did for me was like, well, shit, that's a lot, within the context of like the story that I was told. I have always been very impacted by story. I love story. It makes sense to me that was inspiring to me or interesting to me. And in early high school, as I think most people are, but I was especially like, I'd gotten in some trouble my freshman year. I'd like lost some friends because I had like gotten into trouble. I had like my friend's parents being like, well, she's kind of wild. Like, maybe let's hang out with some other people. So I had that going on. I had like a really traumatic leg injury that put me out of sports, and sports were like my whole identity at the time. What I couldn't have articulated at the time but can now is that I was very like gender vulnerable. I was like very, very, very confused, in a state of like hyper survival when it came to my gender. And like, this all was kind of like the perfect medicine distraction. It took the attention off of me. It literally gave me something to do. It gave me a community. And of course, like evangelical Christians love to see me coming with I'm a mess. I'm a clunky girl. There's
testimony.
I had a testimony. I needed to be saved. You know what I mean? And like, so it just, the shoe fit. So that's what we did. And that's kind of how but I would say, like, when I answer your question, I say, like, when I look back, I think that I was always constructing and deconstructing, and I don't think that that's ever changed. I think where I've landed and how I've come to understand the world and God and reality and myself has absolutely evolved. But I see it as that, like an evolution, not as a disjointed, I left that and now I'm something else. I take everything with me. I like, that's one thing that Max will exhaust himself to do, is take everything with him. I don't want to leave anything behind. When I think about the pain and the hardness of my life, which has been tremendous, there's always like one thing, and it's that I was having to like leave something behind. And so I really make a valiant effort not to do that and not to compartmentalize, just to be my whole like absolute integrated self at every moment, and to just embrace that. So that's what I mean by that. I think that like I even when I was like headlong into Western evangelicalism, I had a reputation of being very critical of like ideas, critical of patriarchy within the church, critical, like like men would tell me to sit the fuck down and shut up, like without saying it that way. They might as well have. Like, I was always getting in trouble for asking questions. I was always getting in trouble for pointing out inconsistencies. And I say trouble, I just mean people didn't like it. It was agitating. It was frustrating. I was a frustrating person in the church the whole time. But I loved it. I mean, I was there for a lot of things, but one of the things that I was there for was I want to know the truth. I'm interested in like how you all define that. And this is all really fascinating. And like, you know, even though I was in it and I was a part of it and I was loving it, I was absolutely and unapologetically 10 toes, 2 feet in there. So I'm not a victim here at all. Like that was, you know, I signed off on that. But yeah, I think there was a big part of me that was like, you know, is really intellectually stimulated by this community's understanding of like reality and history and all these things. And but I was always deconstructing, I think. Like when I look back, I think I was never not. I was always like, okay, I'm building, but I'm also tearing down. I'm building, but I'm also tearing down. And I'm here before you today. I am building, but I am also tearing down. I'm okay with both all the time.
Yeah.
What about you, Eddie?
What's the question?
The question is, when would you say that you started deconstructing? Your faith.
Conversion therapy, probably. Yeah, I mean, I got saved at 18 in a Baptist church, and then immediately the next day went to a Pentecostal church, and I was just in it. And I didn't grow up in church, so I was just my paradigm had shifted massively. Yeah, I was like, oh wow, right? Like, oh, this
neither of us grew up. Neither of us grew in the church.
Yeah. So it was almost like I was handed a whole new universe. It was like, here's your role now. Here's your place. Here's a whole new language, morality system, way of being, group of friends. Here, let's put a guitar in your hands and let's go. Right. So it was like massive change really fast for me. And I think similar to you, I don't know if it's our personality type or whatever, but like we both really like to learn and we were good at teaching. And so we were very quickly thrown into positions of leadership.
Yes.
Which, you know, I have thoughts on that, but, yeah, I mean, I was just like, I was all in, and I don't know how aware I was of the cognitive dissonance in my life. But there was a massive amount. We laughed. Yeah. Oh yeah. This laughter is an understatement. There was a lot. And for me,
and my comment was it was self diagnosing, not I wasn't laughing.
No, I know, I'm aware.
I just want to clarify for the listeners.
Yeah.
I'm not laughing at Nicole. I'm laughing at me. I also had a fair amount.
Yeah. And yeah, it was at the same time that both you and I were really navigating sexuality.
When are we not?
When are we not?
Speaking of, well, not sexuality, but testosterone and...
Yeah. Max just showed me his armpit sweat.
Okay.
Yeah. So the cognitive dissonance for me was mostly around that. This tension that would kind of come and go in waves of me feeling like fully bought in on the idea of Christianity and the thing that it teaches you, that your identity is in Christ. There's a lot of doctrine and dogma really that reinforces this idea that you can't trust yourself. No one is good, no, not one. The heart is deceitful above all things, yada, yada. There was a lot of scripture shown to me and spoken to me that, and I'm not trying to place blame on anyone, but it was like the way that I interpreted all of that was that I couldn't trust myself. So any sort of instinct that didn't fit within this religion and culture, like I just had to deny. And so in doing so, and to be specific, denying my same-sex attraction, I would just like shove that down into my subconscious and be like, you can't come up to the surface. I'm going to be a good Christian and date Nathan Ernstine. We both dated
Nate.
Hey, Nate.
we both dated Nate.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, but and it was cyclical for me. It was very much a pattern that I found myself in, where I would like fall in love with a best friend, have this secret hidden sexual relationship, eventually get really convicted and confess and lose that friendship, and then I'd be devastated and I'd be like, gosh, I'm just gonna have to be celibate. I can't change this in myself. And then eventually I'd meet a cool guy. I'm like, oh, I kind of like him. I trust this person. He's kind of cute. Let's go for it. And then I'd get freaked out and then start the cycle over and over again. So by the time I ended up in conversion therapy, I was actually like, I chose to say yes to it. I think sometimes there have been moments in my life where it felt like I was forced to do it. That's not true. I was required to do it to keep my job in ministry. But I said,
your job.
Yeah, I could have left my job. I said yes to it. And I said yes to it because I had come to the end of my rope and I was like, I cannot change this. I can't do it. I've tried a million different ways. I've sat in a prayer room for 2 years. I've been a worship leader. I've done all the things. This was kind of like my final, attempt, like my biggest hope. And so I went through that process, and I can unpack that in another podcast. It's an interesting story. And and I did the whole thing. And as I was going through this laundry list of praying prayers of repentance for every sin I had ever committed in my life, I had this moment where I was like, is this really it? Like, this is, I don't know. Like, I don't know that this is going to do it. But I obeyed, and eventually I left, and it didn't do it. So I found myself leaving Christianity.
Conversion therapy didn't work.
It didn't work.
Crazy. Isn't it crazy to beg God to not be attracted to women? Like, I am so glad I'm attracted to women.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Nicole was so sweet and genuine and desperate.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. And so, and I think honestly, like, not to compare our stories, because there's no value in that, but like, I don't know that I integrated as well as you. I cut that part of myself off for a long time. I left the church. I was like, I stopped listening to music. I have a whole ketamine journey on the Patreon where just a couple months ago, reintegrated music back into my life. Like, I cut some shit out.
Yeah, you had to step back in ways that like, which I understand. Like, I think when you get into the ways that our stories are different, I think that does make sense. Like, your response to your story and my response to my story makes sense. Those differences are in the differences of the things that we experience, because we did experience a lot in common too.
We did. Yeah. And I mean, I guess to kind of bring it back to like, when did I start deconstructing? It was really kind of in that moment. That was the first moment where I really felt like my inner voice, my intuition was like, I don't think this is it. And I didn't know where to go from that. But that was the first time I was really like honest with myself.
Right.
And I think the first time I publicly, publicly in a big way, just said, this is me. I'm on this journey now. Was it coming out yet? It was when you asked me to marry you.
To ordain my same-sex wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, not to marry you, like get married to you. Yeah, exactly. Because Meg was going to marry Julia. And I was so excited and curious to go to my first same-sex wedding. I'd never seen one before. And I, like, Christian Nicole's like, what would the person even say? Like, how does this work?
Mm-hmm.
And you turned the tables on me and you said, hey, I want you to do it.
I didn't know who else I would have. I mean, you'd seen me, especially at that point. I mean, this is still true a statement, but you had just seen me through every season, and not only seen me, but you'd supported me and been there for me. And yeah, there's something really beautiful about who you were in that moment. And I really wanted you in all of your fragility and like discovery and processing. And I wanted you, even though your work was unfinished and you were unsure. And I was so glad you felt comfortable expressing to me that it was going to be a unique lift. And we like worked through it together. Yeah. And I feel like when we got to the wedding, like, it wasn't even that we both were like, we feel great about everything and at peace. Like, the guilt and the like shame that lived in my body from my experience with like the church and with evangelicalism, unfortunately, still is there. But it was definitely there on my wedding day. And I think I'll let you speak, but I think it was there for you too. And I like that, because we were taking risks, and we were doing something that felt really scary, and we were doing something that felt really courageous. And when I look back at you getting ordained to marry me, and you actually marrying me, and like being the body that stood between me and my former partner, like, with your spirit, with your experience, with our friendship, and Julia obviously loves you too. It's like, there's no one else, and you don't need to be anywhere, and you don't need to be anyone. I just want you, like, exactly how you are, to be that person in this place, in this time, doing this thing. And I'm so glad you said yes.
Yeah, it was a great honor. And if I'm honest, I do remember being pretty dissociated in the experience. Like, yeah. I wish I could drop back in with more presence and remember it. Oh. Like, I think that speaks to trauma. Yeah.
To my own wedding. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
My God.
I think, thank you for saying that. There's so much like deep love that I have for you.
Oh, yes. So mutual.
Yeah. I think because, well, around the conversion therapy time, like, I was also, this is for the sake of the listeners, I was excommunicated from my community in a pretty intense sort of way. I lost pretty much everyone that...
Your whole support system.
My friends were my family, you know? I lost everyone.
Yeah.
And you were the only person that stood by me, really. And so I think, you know, like, that kind of like commitment and love, even if I didn't know if I believed the words that I was saying fully, and I knew that like me just being in the audience watching you marry a woman was gonna create like a whole new round of people talking about me and you.
Yeah.
And I knew there would be like another round of fallout that would feel very traumatic all over again, and I didn't want to experience it. But like, just the fact that you stood by me and I had a front seat to watching you authentically unfold, like there's no question in my mind that I had to do it.
I'm so glad you did. I think about that day, and I think about, I'm glad I kept living my life. But like, it is sad, like, to think about even like that, like, there were moments of my own wedding that were stolen from me because I was so distracted by all the empty seats of the friends and the community that I had up until the point that I made the decision to date and marry a woman. It was so hard and sad that they didn't care about me, the quality of the person that I was like joining my life to. It was like, she's a girl, I can't come. You know, we can get into that day, like probably another podcast, because it's
yeah,
you know, but yeah, it's just like these moments and these tragedies that we've just like held alongside of pushing through and like surviving the church have been immense.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so you married Julia. And I remember going out to St. Louis to interview you for a work project on something LGBTQ, and and you go, yeah, you know, I'll have a conversation around that, but also I'm exploring gender now. And I don't know that I really knew what you meant.
Good for me. That was because like that was early for me to like share that. Thinking back, like I think that was good for me.
Yeah,
I'm glad I said that to you, and I obviously felt safe enough to say it to you.
Yeah, can you go back to that time and remember what was happening? It's another layer of deconstruction, another big milestone on that list.
My goodness. This was like in my mid-20s. Like, I'm turning 36 next week. Yeah, I was probably like 25, 26, something like that. This is 10 years ago. Yeah, you know, I've come out a lot of times. I'm tired of coming out. Y'all can just figure it out. Y'all can just observe. So anyway, this is a whole other thing. It's like, so I had graduated from Miami. I graduated with an interdisciplinary degree in philosophy and education and creative writing. And I wrote a book for my undergraduate thesis that I'm so glad I never published, because not necessarily in line with my current views. But I'm still very proud of myself for doing that. And the doctor, the minister that oversaw my undergraduate thesis, his name is Ray Ortland, and Ray recommended that I go to seminary. He's like, "You're absolutely brilliant, and you should, galvanize your passion and your thoughts and your brilliance in a seminary education. And I was really interested in it at the time. And I also was, like a leader in the church as much as a woman could be at the time. So that's what brought me to St. Louis, Missouri. So I moved to St. Louis, Missouri. I actually started out seminary. It was Covenant Theological Seminary, which is it's like the flagship seminary of the Presbyterian Church of America, the PCA. They do not ordain women. I knew that, and I went in pursuing their MATS, Master of Arts in Theological Studies, because I couldn't get ordained, so it felt like a little bit of a waste of money to pursue a master's in divinity. But like, truth be told, like, that's what I wanted to do. It just felt a little what's the point? I can't get ordained, like I can't teach in this capacity, so let me just get this 2-year degree. And I literally started taking summer classes. Like, I went straight from my undergrad. I started my summer classes a week after I graduated from my undergrad. I literally been a student like since I was 5. And I love being a student. I would be a student right now if I could. I can, but anyway. So I'm at seminary, and within literally 2 weeks of taking classes, I'm pulled aside by one of my professors, who basically tells me, "You're in the wrong program. This is not going to challenge you. I think that if you're going to put in the time, you're going to do this. I think you should, pursue a master's in divinity, which is a 4-year degree. It integrates their counseling program, and their theology program, and it's a pastoral degree. It's essentially 2 masters in one. So I said, well, that's what I want to do. And it felt good to be recognized for my mind and my heart and things like that. And so I said, yeah, let's do it. So I was like, what? Like there were, I think like 80 men in my class, and it was me and like 2 other women in the whole seminary doing this program. So I got my MDiv to feed myself throughout this grad school experience, because women, by the way, could not get scholarships for that program. We couldn't like, every year, like, it's like before the year started, you apply to scholarships for the program within the universities, or within the seminaries. Women couldn't apply for scholarships. So I think the only one paying 100% out of pocket for this experience that I'm getting, this education, which, I did. It was my choice. And I obviously had to make money. So I worked at a pizza restaurant and to get myself through grad school. And I met my, who I married, who Nicole was talking about. When Nicole married me, I met Julia at a pizza restaurant, and she was like an out, proud lesbian. She went to Webster University, which is a like small liberal arts college in, well, it's more than that, but it's in St. Louis. And yeah, that's like our relationship was catalyzed at this pizza restaurant, and it transformed into this beautiful thing. And I ended up coming out in seminary in order to be with her. I was almost sure that I was going to get kicked out of seminary for being authentic and coming out, but a part of their funding is from the state, so I was like protected under like discrimination laws against laws protecting me from discrimination against me for my sexuality. So I ended up being able to graduate. It was socially like the hardest situation that I've ever done. I mean, just being in that program, like getting my MDiv was, I mean, I've learned Hebrew, Koine Greek. I can read the Old and New Testament in their original languages. And then I'm writing essays on, like, I mean, it was just so hard. Like, I'm writing essays on, like, conversations between Jeremiah and Isaiah the prophets in Hebrew. And I'm being told by my professors that I'm going to hell for dating Julia. I am being socially ostracized by my friends. I would sit in office hours, which were mandatory, and be told by my professors, that I was going to hell. Like, I mean, it was crazy. I had to be going to a church actively. I had to be an active member at a church in order to graduate. I had to be volunteering and doing like a pastoral internship. I had to get signed off by my pastors of the church I was a member of. And I'm coming out and I'm like telling people that I'm dating a woman. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I don't know how I'm going to do this, because if I don't obey this system, all of this money that I have spent on this degree is going to be taken away from me, even though I like technically can't get kicked out of this church based on like laws protecting me, this seminary. I'm being pushed out because I'm not allowed to be gay and to be participating. And so I'm not going to get the signatures that I need. And I'm not going to be able to like go to the office hours, because I don't know how many times I can sit there and have a 60-year-old man tell me that the devil is behind me in his office because I'm dating this wonderful woman. Like, I mean, it was just so insane. So without getting into that, like, I was about a year and a half out from that experience. I ended up graduating by the skin of my life. I mean, it took everything in me to get through that program. I'm also trying to court and date and pursue somebody, which I like, in hindsight, that was taking on quite a bit. Maybe could have slowed down. I obviously, I started therapy because I was like, I wouldn't call myself suicidal, but I would call myself having a strong inability to see the future. Like, I'm talking like weeks or months ahead of my life at that point. And so I started with a therapist. That's like a big deconstruction impetus for me, like starting therapy, giving myself a little bit of permission to name and feel the weight of the things that I had just been through, which we honestly haven't even scratched the surface of. But my marriage, my relationship to Julia, this beautiful, like, free, unassuming, open-hearted, open-minded person who had a bunch of friends who were like that too, and I met them, and it started creating a little bit more openness in me. And one of the things that I started to be open about was this deep, dark secret that I've always carried, which is I never felt like a girl. And that's where I was when you came up from Nashville to interview me. I don't think I was quite at that like state of acceptance of like, I'm fully not a girl, but I was, I guess, if I made that comment to you, I was beginning to name some of my gender trouble, which had been historically something that I had completely sealed the lid on. I was like, I'm going to die with that for sure. And it, the openness of my partner at the time and the openness of like the people around me in the queer community that I was meeting, you know, slowly in St. Louis, were creating some permission for me to maybe like start to untighten that lid a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I do get the impression that you were in the beginning of that. It was almost like you wanted to plant a seed with me, but you weren't really ready to dive into that. Yeah. Yeah. And I I just remember when you started sharing photos of yourself as a kid, as you started to like talk about this publicly and kind of unpack what was going on for you in early childhood. And I just remember looking at these pictures and I was like, oh my God, like absolutely the cutest little boy.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Yeah. I mean, your story is so big. And
it's a little
Lex, you were the biggest you were the biggest human I've ever met. And I think it is so beautiful. You are an entire universe. It's really hard to like have a focused conversation. It feels like like awareness, right? I'm just like, how much do we zoom out on Max and when do we zoom in? And anyway, what was childhood like? And
it was brilliant and beautiful and tragic and precious and devastating, and there was so many things. All things considered, I had an amazing childhood. I was undoubtedly a boy from the get. The second I could start expressing my gender, like the second my parents would let me put on my own clothes, you know, the second I started gaining like the slightest amount of independence, I was expressing myself like in masculine ways. I'd wear my brother's clothes or the most like neutral, simple, basic outfits that I possibly could. I, you know, would like when kids imaginatively like play with each other, or play house, play Beauty and the Beast. You know, I was the Beast. I'm Gaston. That's how I saw myself. Like there was nothing. I wasn't taught it. When I would watch Disney movies, it's like, yeah, I'm Aladdin. Like, I don't know, Jasmine. Like, ain't nothing Jasmine about it, you know. And yeah, like you just don't. I mean, I'm a kid. I don't know what's normal. I don't know what's not. I don't know what like typical gender consciousness is. I don't know that mine's wrong or different. I just can tell you that like from the beginning of my consciousness, I've always understood myself as a boy, as a man. And my parents they're amazing. They kind of gave me a boyhood as much as was possible. I was born in 1989. The early 90s, having a child that is like asserting masculinity, like no one was doing that. I don't know anybody. It was called a tomboy back then, and tomboys of course exists now. It just never felt right, and rightfully so. I was just like, I think it's more than that, because I have a lot of friends who are tomboys that I like play sports with and things like that, but they seem comfortable like being a girl. It's like I'm not comfortable. I would assert like I don't want to be called Megan. I want to be called this. Like call me this for today. I would like when no one was watching, like I'd like go to the bathroom, I'd close the door and I'd pee like standing up like over the seat to be like feel masculine or feel like a boy. I want to pee like a boy. All my friends were boys. I'd run around. I would be all-time quarterback. Like I grew up in this beautiful neighborhood, tons of kids my age who are still friends of mine to this day, who I adore, even if I haven't spoken to them in years and years and years and years. It just like that. My childhood holds such a special like place in my heart, and it was such a beautiful time. But yeah, I mean, essentially like my parents, my siblings, and my neighborhood, who was like my family growing up, they like fed the delusion, you know. They were like, he was like a boy, you know. I don't know, like I like if she's happy like with short hair and no shirt and playing all-time quarterback, like she's the best quarterback. So like you know, she's the best quarterback, so she's gonna be the quarterback. Like we want to win, you know, and she wants to win, and like that's just how I grew up. Like I had this beautiful boyhood. On vacations, my parents would let me go by like a different name, so it was like socially easier. Like at home, they would be like, "No, like your name is Megan. We're gonna do, you know, it's a she, her, this, that, you know." And I get it. It's like confusing for society, especially in the early '90s. And that, you know, like it was just a lot, and they didn't know what was going on either. Is this a phase? Is this, what is this? Like they don't know. Like the cultural and social awareness of like being transgender was so much less at that time. My parents were just kind of like, they just didn't know what to do. But they did their best, and there were hard parts, of course. Like there were ways that I felt really shut down in my gender, and like, you know, my mom would make me wear like pink or flowers on picture day, or I have to wear a fucking dress, you know, and I never wanted to wear a fucking dress. And yeah, it just, there were, you know, it's not like it was certainly not all rainbows and butterflies, but for a kid in the 90s, I felt like I got this little boyhood, this little glimpse. But in some ways that made it really difficult when the rude awakening of puberty came, and just getting bullied. I was really, really, really bullied in middle school and elementary school and middle school. Like I was made fun of. I like the first day of kindergarten, I was sitting in the front seat of the bus, and I was sitting by the window, and this kid who was on my bus route, his name was Craig, and he walked onto the bus, and he like, my head was this close to the window. I was sitting by the window minding my business. I was such a shy kid, believe it or not. But I was scared of being seen, and so it made sense. But Craig walks by and slams my head against the window, and I think said like, "What's going on, pussy?" or something like that to me. I was 5, you know, so that started like, just that was like when I was at school, I was experiencing things like that. I had a lot of like really tragic, I mean, when I would like start crying if I talk about some of my little Max like experiences, which I'm fine to do, but getting, you know, staying on track is like, it just became too much. And I was like, all right, you know, I am a girl. I don't know what this is. I don't know what the fuck's going on. But like, this is too much. It's too hard. I can't assert this like boyhood. I'm confused. I don't know. And I just kind of gave in, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna stop shopping in the boys section. I'm gonna start shopping in the girls section at Abercrombie. I'm gonna, you know, like get girlfriends. And like I had girlfriends, but like I wasn't like spending a bunch of my like free time with them and stuff. Like, but I was like, okay, I just need to like invest in these types of things. I need a boyfriend. I need like, you know, the summer between 7th and 8th grade, I literally came to 8th grade as a girl, and people were like, literally like, who is that? I'd grown my hair out, I put makeup on, and I wore girl clothes. And like people that I had gone to kindergarten with were like, what is that? Like, what's, you know, like, and And I just kept getting girlier and girlier because it got easier and easier. Like not inside it got harder and harder, and it became like I had to become more dissociated and compartmentalized and detached from myself, but my environment got so much more livable. So after 8th grade, I turned and I said, I am never looking back, and no one will ever know about that part of my story. I felt so much shame that I had that I couldn't make sense of it, that I couldn't figure it out. I was embarrassed, I was confused, and I really, really didn't want to talk about it. And I didn't start talking about it for, gosh, I was probably 12 when I made the decision to be a girl, or to give in to girlhood rather. And I didn't even speak about it until I was maybe 26 or 27 years old.
Yeah.
That's where you found me. That's where I was. Like,
in that moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, do you think it was the fact that you were in a more progressive community around trans people that made you be like, oh, wait, maybe I need to revisit that? Like, what was the catalyst for deconstructing your gender at that point in time?
It's going to sound crazy, but in therapy, I would be talking about like my sexuality, and my gender would keep coming up a lot. Like,
oh, like the subconscious, and you just
or my therapist would just be like, well, you can be like gay and not have to be a man, or not have to be masculine, and I'd be like, oh, okay. Like I just wasn't realizing how much these two things were wound up together for me. And as I started deconstructing my sexuality, which is a whole different story, is like I realized how much gender trouble I had. I started realizing that in therapy, and like one-on-one cognitive behavioral therapy, and it kept coming up. So it was like, well, something's there. Okay, let's move towards that. And literally, I had forgot that was my childhood. I was in therapy, and my therapist at the time was asking me about like, well, have you ever like, is there anything in your past, or have you ever thought about like being a boy? I don't even know if it was that direct or something like that, but like I started talking about my childhood, something in my childhood. And I started talking about my childhood, and I'm picturing myself in my childhood, and I'm like reassociating like the visual of myself as a small boy with what I'm, the experience or the thing that I'm sharing with my therapist. Like, oh yeah, there's this time, and I'm picturing myself like for the first time, not for the first time ever, but like for the first time in 20 years, 15 years, 20 years, I'm like, oh my God. I saw myself, and I was like, I look like a little boy. Oh yeah, I had this whole thing, like, and it was like, that's how deep the compartmentalization and the shame had like locked all of that away so deeply. Obviously being in the church, like, really put like layers of cement over the already shame that society put on my gender. And there was a lot of thawing. And so like that thawing started to happen in my therapy sessions at the time. And it was literally like an aha. I started like processing that for myself, like privately, because again, the shame. I think I started to say things like that, like the things that I said to you, like, I'm also maybe processing my gender. I think I started to say things like that very slowly to very safe people. But even that is like, it just felt so fragile, because the last time I came out, I lost the time I came out as being gay. I lost absolutely everyone and absolutely everything. And so I was terrified of what I was starting to see.
And you had, just married this amazing human.
Yeah.
Who thought she had married Meg. And so, I remember just as a friend, as an outsider, kind of watching this unfold, wondering like, oh gosh, like, if I were Julia, what would I do in that situation? Thinking,
I know,
because as an individual, you have sexual preferences and gender preferences and things, and so, but I will say, like, without spoiling the story, Julia, standing ovation, right? Like, what a human!
He's so awesome. Yeah. We are, just for the sake of the podcast, for anyone who's listening, we're dear friends, but we are no longer married. We've been separated for like several years now. Yeah, like Julia is, she just gave me this incredible gift in her presence in that season of my life. And
she held it with you. She held it.
Innovation for sure. Yeah.
She held it. She walked it.
She was wonderful.
Yeah.
Is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. So then marriage, another thing that deconstructs.
Yeah. Julia was actually like the day that I started like realizing this in therapy, but I had not named it, right? Like I had not named that I was a trans man. Like that had not been close to. It was just like, ooh, like I'm a masculine woman. I'm embracing like wearing like masculine things as a woman. That's how it started. Like when I think when I was starting to talk to you or like open up to friends, like I kind of just was like, you're going to notice that I'm not wearing like skirts and heels and the things that I like used to do to like hide. You're going to notice that is like, I'm going to stop hiding in those ways. Like, so I would say little things because I wanted, like, I didn't want it to be awkward. Like I wanted to acknowledge for people close to me that have known me my whole life or know me at least for the last, the 10 or 15 years before that, like, I'm just embracing a little less girliness, like, and I hope that's okay with everybody. And I was just doing that a little bit. But one day, this is like a couple years, I don't know, sometimes with timeline, like this was maybe 2 to 4 years into Julie and I's marriage, maybe 2.5. We were watching the documentary that Katie Couric put out called The Gender Revolution. And in the first 10 minutes of this documentary, it was a Sunday. I think I was hungover. Like I was just like tired, vulnerable, but I watched this documentary. It was a Sunday afternoon. And in the first 10 minutes, Katie Couric goes, she just defines what being transgender is to set the tone for the documentary. She says, transgender is, someone who is transgender is someone who doesn't identify with the sex they were assigned at birth. And I think I started bawling, and I looked at Julia, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I think that's me. It was just like, I think that's what happened to me. I think that's what I am. And I took a break from it, and like I cried, and I think the tears right now, but the tears then too were just like this weightiness of like, what does that mean? Like, I've already lost so much. Like, I've already sacrificed so much. I've already had to give up so much. Is this like scary truth about me, this thing that I'm afraid of saying out loud, but that's always felt true. is it gonna make me lose more? Spoiler alert, it did. You know, the moment felt so, God, it felt so relieving, but it felt so heavy. It felt so relieving to say, and it felt so heavy, like, ooh, like, how am I going to do this again? I'm really tired. I'm already tired. I'm still dealing with the grief and the residuals from the first time I came out. I wasn't particularly well with my family and my parents at the time. They were still struggling a little bit with my sexuality, with coming out about that. Like, I just felt like I felt terrified. I felt like Julia was like the only person I had, and I felt like what if I lose her too? What if this? She was a lesbian. She'd never been with a man. She's what they call a gold star. So when your wife is a gold star lesbian and you come out to them as a man, it's like it feels really, really scary. And it was. But as has been true every single time I have had to do this in my life, which is like watch everything shatter, bend down, pick up the pieces, and put something together again. I can't overstate how difficult that's been, but on every side, every time, what I've come up with has been more beautiful than it was before. And so I looked at her, and I think we both kind of knew it might be the beginning of, at the very least, a lot of change and a lot of uncertainty. And we were right. Yeah, for the sake of like her privacy and mine too, like we stayed like very together. We stayed monogamously together for I think like a year and a half. We ended up like opening our marriage because this thing happens when you transition genders, is you realize you haven't really lived as that person. And all the experiences that you had in your whole life have been ones that you haven't really felt yourself in. And so we opened our marriage so that, like, essentially for me, like, so that I could explore and experience things like outside of a monogamous relationship with a woman. And in that like exploration, we both like our desires shifted for like I would say we both kind of expanded and we pursued like other partners, and we stayed together like even with that dynamic for a while. But for us, it doesn't look like that for everybody. For us, we just we started to like we just started to become like really good friends. The romantic and like sexual aspect of our relationship, I think like we just were more interested in other things and in other people. And then there was just a lot of grief in like that process, and in like just accepting that and being like, there's really nothing wrong with this, with either one of us, like just being like, I want to be with this person, and me being like, I think I want to be with this person, or with nobody, or whatever. And yeah, we decided to separate. And I moved to Brooklyn shortly after that. And yeah, it's been a journey. I am so happy to say that we're still very close friends, and like Julia is still a part of my support system. I am a part of hers. Like she gave me the gift of being somebody that no one else in my life could ever seem to manage to do for that season, and it was like it's one of my like biggest gifts that I've ever received. And yeah, she's so important to me, and she's such a good friend, and that's what I needed.
This is kind of the moment in your story where I feel like more people on average begin to relate, at least in the circle that we come from, right? Because a lot of people who grew up religious and in the church and got married really young.
True.
We've seen many divorce, many open up their marriage. Less people come out gay or trans, but more people come out being like, there's a part of myself that I buried and I never got to explore, and that's coming up over and over again. I don't know what to do about it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That'd be happening to us. I think it's really like if you're experiencing, hopefully you're not experiencing as many, I don't even know what to call them, revelations, evolutions. I mean,
apocalypses.
I guess I wish them on you in the sense that, like I mean, I don't know who said this, or like, I don't even know if it's a quote or it's just something like a philosophy maybe, but like, I think like something that I found to be incredibly true, or maybe it's a coping strategy, I don't know, for myself, to just like something that I tell myself, I'm not really sure, but I think that this is true, is that, and I'm not, this is not original, this is not a Max original, but it's just something that I've heard somewhere along the lines, and I found it to be true, is that the extent to which you have the capacity to experience like loss and hardship and suffer is the extent to which the height to which the ceiling of your capacity for joy, for pleasure, for peace. And I have found that to be true. I have lived a lot of life in my 36 years, and I have experienced just unfathomable amounts of pain and loss, so much more than I've even mentioned here. And I would also say that I'm one of the happiest people that I know. I'm so happy. Even when I'm sad, even when I'm like having a hard time. I'm having a hard time today. It's been a really tough week. The person I love right now, that I've been working really hard on, like, I'll just call them my partner. We're not like together right now, formally, but yeah, I've just been really, like, we're on an off. We're not well, and we're having a tough time, and I'm having a tough time with that, and that's how I came here today. And even though I'm like sad today, I'm so happy. Like, I really am, like, even when life is so hard, it's so good. It's still so good. I still see, I know what's possible, not just in my mind, but like in my bones, in my body. And that's a nice reward for, like, after everything that I've had to experience, specifically the things that I didn't choose, it feels nice to, like, at least I have me. And if the floor falls out of my life again, I will always have Max, and I love Max.
I want to wipe your tears off your face. Give you a big kiss.
Let them dry. Thank you, honey. It's so cathartic to just like let that go. Let tears out of my eyes. But you know, testosterone. Like, I've been on testosterone for a little over 6 years now, which is crazy to say. But testosterone actually inhibits your tear ducts. Like, it's when estrogen is like the predominant hormone in your body, it's like easier to release that catharsis like through your eyes. And so it's actually such a gift when I can cry, because I literally physically can't cry as easily as I used to be able to, which I'm a big baby. I'm a big crier. And so, yeah, it feels really good to just sit here and just love on myself and let some of that go and release, because it's been a week.
Yeah. I want to highlight something, which is, yes, you are by far one of the most joyful people I've ever come across. I mean, you are in a different energy right now, and I love you exactly how you are. But you're the person, it's like when I see you walking up in the distance, it's like your smile is as big as the world, you know. It's like there's just always you're so radiant and always so present and optimistic, and you know, all these things. And so you made this correlation between the depths of like sadness and grief that one experience and the capacity then to go experience the other side. I also want to point out that what I see you like stretching further than most humans I've come across in is authenticity. And I mentioned that earlier. And I think it's the same reason why, right? You had spent so many years of your life, and I relate to this, maybe not to the same degree, but so many years of your life, suppressing who you are. I mean, modifying how you show up to the world, because the world, this mirror, from the moment you were like existed as a fucking human, this mirror is reflecting back to you that it like doesn't know what to do with you, that like you, like it's confused by you, that like it's offended by you, like for fucking ever, right?
I am offensive. I have always been offensive.
Yeah.
I know. I wish I wasn't. I like, there are so many times, especially, like my person, my sweetheart right now, like I feel like that's one of the things that we come up against a lot, is like, I sometimes wish that I was a little more agreeable, but like it's just throughout my whole life, it's just always been that way. It's whether it's with my gender or men in the church or my sexuality or really anything. Like I've never had a problem making an enemy, and I don't want to. I really love even people that I don't like. I love, and I think because sometimes like I'm confident and I'm self-assured, and specifically sometimes in Brooklyn, in my community here, like it's not everyone sees like this part of me. And it's not because I don't want to show it. It's just, I don't know, like I'm not involved in like activities like that. I'm able to really like express myself this way very frequently. So there's like, I'm trying to be more like known here. That's like the frontier I'm on, like that. But it's just a lot. There's a lot to know, and but I think like if you don't know everything that's behind this, it would be very easy to perceive me as like, I don't know, just kind of, I could make an enemy out of me if I didn't know like everything.
Yeah.
Trying to relate it back to what you're saying, but yeah, sometimes I wish it was more agreeable and like I was less stubborn or like came across like more a little more meek or something. But
yeah.
I'm not, and I'm tired. I'm so fucking tired of making myself palatable and small, and I have a lot of feelings. I don't have a little feelings. I have a lot of feelings. I always have. I can't help it. I don't know. It's they're always connected to something. There's a reason. But I want to be able to. I want to be able to like slow release my story. I wish I was someone who like could be seen and everything could be seen. But now when you look at me, it's like I look like I pass now. I've been on testosterone for 6+ years, and I have a beard. I look like a white cis man, I look like someone not a lot of people would be very interested in giving like a lot of like a big ear to, and I understand that. I don't personally personally like, see a white cis man, love you guys, but like I don't particularly like run into white cis men and be like, wow, gosh, tell me your story, like tell me everything. I find myself a lot more interested in people's stories who have like been through, not that white cis men haven't been through difficult things, but like I'm just more drawn to people with a little more seasons, a little more character, a little more edges, a little more things, like, because that's truly underneath it all, like who I am too. And I would love to be seen more that way, but I understand why I'm not. And
yeah.
But I want to be known.
Yeah, and I want to go back to that like a line I was drawing where it's like you've experienced a lot of the negative spectrum of being seen, right? Like a lot of judgment, a lot of fear, a lot of right. And but I like what I want to like also say. I can speak for myself. I am one of these people who see you way up here, and I don't mean like in a pedestal way. You're a human to me, but like, you're amazing. I think a lot about, yeah, like I truly don't know a more authentic person than you, and that's only because you had to be so profoundly inauthentic for a moment in time, and here you are now, and you've just walked this journey so brilliantly, and it's been hard, and it's probably felt clumsy, but it's been like insane to watch. It's like better than any movie I've ever seen. I'm like so on the edge of my seat always for you, here for it, and I'm like who else is Max becoming? Like, I mean, how old are you about to be? Would you say 36?
Yeah, I'm turning.
We don't know. Yeah,
next...
we don't even know. Like, but I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, how much further can a human go? Like, that's how I feel about you, and I know that it feels so exhausting sometimes. And
Yes.
I've never seen anyone do it. It's remarkable. It really, truly is. And I hear you. I feel you in your longing to be seen. And I feel that way myself often. And it kind of trips me. It blows my mind sometimes to think that, like, no two people will ever perceive me in the same way.
Right.
As each other or how I see myself. So, like, what even is self, And it's just like, if Max is just like one big fractured mirror and people get to see a glimpse of you, it's like, it's the full spectrum. It's the negative and the positive in all the ways. And yet, like, really the only thing that matters is how you see yourself, and you finally love you. And I heard you say this earlier, and this is where I feel like most humans, like, if you can learn anything, it is like, how do you show up for you? How do you love yourself so that when anything in life happens, a divorce or a death or the rug gets ripped out some way, or like the apocalypse really does come and we're all, gonna die. It's like, no matter what happens, it's like you're steady in yourself. Like, oh my God, I think that's what we're all longing for. I think that's what we looked out there for. Like, I remember the reason I got saved, like the message that was being preached to me the moment I got saved was, there's a hole in your heart and you go here and here and here and here to try to fill it. You go to drugs and sex and rock and roll. And the only thing that can fill it is still out here outside of yourself, and it's a man named Jesus Christ. And that sounded really good. I was like, oh yeah, I really resonate with that hole in my heart. Like, give me, I want the void filled. Give me that man who died on a cross. I said, yeah. And I had a profound, impactful experience at the altar. Like, I felt like I was born again and I got saved.
Okay.
And then over time, this is part of the deconstruction for me, is like realizing that looking outside of myself was actually prohibiting me from the very thing I needed to do, which was find the truth. Find myself, find the truth that I am the one that I have been waiting for. And Christianity was a stepping stone in helping me get there.
Mm-hmm. We thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like I'm just bringing my day into the conversation. Is it's like it's nice to sit here and be reminded, like, sometimes you just got to remember what you've survived, because I do think that self-knowing and self-assurance has come in large part of just the experience of surviving. Like, I know that I can get through anything. I know that I know what I can lose. I don't want to lose anymore, but I know I can do it. I know I'm a person who can lose. And I think that there is like a big release in that. There's something that happens when you lose a lot. There's a lot that happens. I mean, we call it grief, but like when you've been through, like, something clicks, and I think in society we talk about self-love and finding ourselves, and we're all in this search and self-care, and I think it's more, for me, like, in just what I've experienced and like the wisdom I've gained in life, for me it's felt like more of a byproduct of just being present for the things that are happening right in front of me. I know there's this like there's a Catholic Western evangelical Christian temptation to kind of like monasticize even new age spirituality. Like, I have to go retreat. I have to go be alone with myself in order to build this relationship with myself. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. And I think there's a lot of importance in being comfortable alone and genuinely like sitting there and thinking about you and who you are and what you bring to this beautiful world, and really like adoring that and appreciating that. I think it's a very valuable like gift to give to ourselves. And I do that. But I just believe so much in integration and relationship. I think relationships have saved my life. I think relationships have taught me the most about myself. You said earlier, like, the world is our mirror. Yeah, there's like individual relationships. There's our relationship with kind of like our community. And then there's our relationship with like society. There's our relationship with systems and all of these things. And I think something that I butt heads with a little bit in our kind of modern healing culture is like, or our deconstruction culture, whatever we want to say, is like, I'm a really, really stubborn believer in relational healing. I think it's the fastest way to see yourself. When you're with a safe person, when you're in front of someone who cares about you, and you are willing to let yourself be seen by them, like the ugly, the scary, the fear, the pain, the joy, the beauty, all of our humanity, when we sit with each other like that, that is at least where I have gotten the most traction in terms of genuinely like falling head over heels for myself. Because when people can show me, like, we invented mirrors, but like, think about humanity. Like, if we didn't have a mirror and we really relied on each other to like what if I couldn't see myself and I needed you to be like, oh my gosh, I mean, you have this like beautiful salt and pepper hair, you have these like blue eyes, you have freckles in your left one, your lips are really full, you have a beard, you stand a gargantuan 5'5" tall. Your personality is like this. I experience you like that, and your joy feels like this, and it makes everyone smile. Like, when everyone's smiling at you, that's why. People think you're so funny. Like, if we didn't have mirrors and we really needed each other to like reflect ourselves back to each other, I think about that, and I think, like, at least the people closest to me, I always try to tell them, like, I try to say what I see, because that healed me, like, is such a big part of my healing. It's like someone's telling you what they see, and you're like, there's this like little Max that's like, really? We all want to be beautiful. And we all want to be beautiful to others, and we want people we love to like know, like, gosh, I think you're so beautiful, and I'm so glad you think that I am. Like, I'm really trying to be. I'm really, really trying to be.
I'm just having this experience of you right now. I'm like, you're you're so beautiful. I'm watching you cry, and it's like, it's beautiful. And I'm just, like, the love pouring out of you is beautiful. And I'm just sitting here, like, looking at the context of the world we're in, right?
I know.
You are a transgender human right now in this moment in time, and you're beautiful because you're choosing to look at this. And it's not like you're not looking at that. You're in it. You work at a nonprofit for trans people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not that you don't see. You look at all of it.
I know what's going on. Yeah. I do. I'm very, very acquainted with what's going on. There's like so much pressure on trans people right now. I mean, I think some of my fragility is because of that. I'll say that for sure. Like, I feel very vulnerable right now. I feel like a lot of my closest relationships and a huge part of my support system is other trans people. And I am a trans person who is a big part of a lot of other people's support systems. And there's just so much pressure. There's pressure from within. There's pressure from without. And I'm worried about like us, and I'm worried about me and my friends and my partner and like, or my person rather. But like, it's all just a lot. It's a lot. And honestly, this conversation has been a nice break from the a lotness of that pressure. And like how the ceiling feels like it's closing in and the floor seems like it's raising, and like I don't always know like what the future is for trans people. But I know that I know that I have survived what I've survived, and I know that I would do anything for my community, my friends, and we're going to figure it out. We always do. Trans people have, we are survival experts. We know what to do. And when we don't, we'll figure it out, because that's what survival is. It's the tenacity. It's the will.
And the audacity.
I certainly have that.
Yeah.
I have all three. And the courage. Takes a lot of courage to be alive right now, and to be beautiful, to shine, to, you know, it feels scarier to stick your neck out as a trans person. It feels scarier to not just, I mean, the temptation to just fade into the background and just be a man and live my life, and, you know, but I would never do that. I mean, unless my life depended on it, which I don't feel like it does at this moment. At this moment, it feels very important to be beautiful and to let people see me. But it's very hard, and it comes with a lot that I think cis people don't have access to understanding, and that's okay. But like, yeah, thank you for listening. Like, this conversation isn't over, but I just want to pause, and if you are listening to this podcast, you're listening to a conversation that a trans person is in, and I hope that you saw some of my humanness, and I hope that you know that every single trans person that is alive, that is not alive, and that will be alive is just like me. Human, just like me.
I know how I want to end this episode. In part of my deconstruction and integration journey, I turned to psychedelic therapy, which has really changed my life. And there was a journey a few months ago that I went on when I was like there to like deeply explore my subconscious. Which at first, by the way, when I started doing that, it was terrifying because you're like, what's in there? What's going to come out? Will I be able to handle what it is and what it is asking of me? And the more that I've done it, the more that I can't wait to go back in there. And I also have a wonderful therapist who she said something like, I trust fully in the subconscious and what it wants to show me. Like I believe in it. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. Anyway, there's one journey in particular that I reached out to you beforehand and I said, hey Max, will you show up for me? Like, I know you can't be there. You're in Brooklyn. I'm not asking you to sit with me, but like, will you send me a video or a note or something for me? In a moment where I just kind of will need it. And you did, and you read me a poem. And it's, yeah, one of your favorite poems. And that's how I want to end this podcast, with you reading that poem to everyone who's listening. And before we do, I just, if there's anything else that wants to be said or explored, I'm not trying to wrap this second. Like, there's still some time, but that's how I want to end today with you.
I think, like, I mean, I read this poem for the first time. It's really random that I sent it to you. I mean, I didn't know how you would experience it. And I meant it in a very just like light way. Like, here's something that I like. And it's a poem between like two lovers on a path together. And I heard it read aloud for the first time when I was at Miami by this poet named Anis Mojgani, and the poem is called Milos. And I'll read it, but it's like it's this like delightful funky escape between two lovers. And yeah, it's really nice. It feels a lot like me. I don't know what that means. It just, I'm a romantic person.
Yeah.
It
feels like you and a lover. It feels like you and a friend, and it feels like you and society. Like it feels like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really like it. He says, run through these streets with me, with a bunch of bottles. Let us take a sack of spray paint and spray paint over the paintings. Let us dance through Paris. Kiss in the shadow of the Louvre. Break its windows to crawl inside, to scroll manifestos over the canvases, write Morse code on the sculptures. Roll a sleeping bag on the floor to sleep inside of, tell one another a story by flashlight, unearth everything from before. Bury each other inside of the other, feed grapes to the ants, light fireworks in the fist of sleeping kings, kill a monarch. Break back outside and find a wall to do all of the same things to, up and upon, against, break the bricks. climb over them. And when the sirens scream, laugh loud, hold my hand and run fast. Run through these streets with me with a bunch of bottles, a bucket of gasoline, a mouthful of matches, a pocket full of paintings, and a fresh-faced batch of policemen to chase the fires we are lighting, with a laugh and a shoulder of gold. And I thought that the museums were cemeteries where the dead paid the walls to hold what we had so that we could walk through what we once were, where children take their skulls to turn into gardens, to pluck for forefathers and farther stars that on some nights resemble an armless mother praying for her arms back, and on others resemble the cold stones that we tear from our jaws to fling at the black-gloved riot soldiers, where every giggle is filled with lust. Let us laugh this night away, and I will fuck you like you were a prayer, and I could save me by having my mouth around you, and I will hold you afterwards like you were the pulpit and I was the sky. And this love that danced between that hardness was a telephone line of holiness that those two things spoke through. Take me into your heart like I was a saint, and you were a face of forgiveness, blooming into a valley destined to sink further. Be a river with me, be a storm, the front porch, the bend in the path, the heat in the south, the heat in the boot. Be a boot full of banjo strings, a fist full of written songs, a mouthful of chocolate dust. When they come to take us, stab them between the eyes. Do not take your hand from around mine. Make a fist with the other and punch spines like guilt, spit, sweat, kiss them like a grandmother. How will open-mouthed terror love-filled? And when they come to tie us down, to strap us in, to shave our hair, and ask us to pay penance, come from inside of us, you say with me loud and trembling, but loud and clear. I have already emptied myself. I have emptied myself. I am a picture waiting to be filled with night. A bowl for plums, those plums have come. I have emptied myself. I kissed regret goodbye. I took the hands of another backwards angel and rode backwards into the rain, watching our footsteps gallop away behind us. When the hangman of morrow comes to hang the sun in its daily execution, say this with me. Sarah, we are apples. Our love is an arrow. I'm unbuttoning my shirt, painting a circle over my heart. Please shoot straight. So that's lovely. And I love that. It feels in love, it feels rebellious, it feels like risk, feels like possibility and chance. It feels real.
It feels like all of humanity. It feels like consciousness in every form exploring itself in the dark and the light and all of it. It feels like all of it. And to me, you feel like all of it.
That's all I want to be. Just a delightful little microcosm of possibility.
I love you.
I love you too.